So this is 12:50. Let's just say 12:50. All right. So will you give me a signal once we get to presentation for me? Is it ready? Okay, it's coming. All right, brethren, I want to give a keynote address. I have titled my keynote address, Creating Wealth in Uncertain Times. One of the things that I will talk about is that we are living in very uncertain times. But because we are living in uncertain times, it doesn't mean that there are no opportunities. I see opportunities, wherever I go. Just turn to the person next to you and say, we live in a world of abundance and opportunities. Yeah. Let nobody convince you that we live in a world where there is scarcity of opportunities. We live in a world of abundance. Let's move on to the next slide. Is there any way I can control my slides, my son? If you put the laptop there, can I control it? Yeah. I've got a number of slides, and this thing is stable. So I just press it down. Good. All right, I forgot to do one thing. I've got about 20 slides, but I printed 2 pages, which summarize 4 of my slides. So I'll just ask you, Tafazo, if you can just give me 1 page for my mind. Just 1 page. Yeah, just one. No, it's enough for everyone. So I want to talk about 5 things. I'll talk about our journey. In talking about our journey, it's basically my way of introducing me and my family. And I will talk about the journey that we've traveled as entrepreneurs there. So I'm married to Tafazo. We've got 3 boys. So that's the family there. 2 things that I want to mention about our family. In our family, we've got a rule. Everyone who completes matric has to do a gap year in the business. So Temba did his gap year in the business. He learned quite a lot. He's actually doing 2nd year at a university in America. Every time he phones me, he's talking about entrepreneurship opportunities that he's participating in and some of the prizes that he's winning there. And it's always a good story. I taught my children 2 things. Number 1, they have to have an investment portfolio. So in our family, it's a must that each of the children has to have their own investment portfolio. So every week I've got a catch-up discussion with my son, and we talk about how his portfolio is actually doing. It's a rule in our family. So because he completed matric, he is now a digital officer in the business. So as soon as he completed matric, we gave him a contract and took him into the business. So he's actually a digital officer. He runs our digital strategy within the business. He'll be doing that for the next 8 years, and then not 8 years, 8 months, and then he goes to America for his studies. So he's already secured a place in America, and he'll be doing his studies, there. My wife wanted our children to be doctors. So I said, look, I will not influence you or anything, but it turned out that they all want to go into business. So the 3 of them, look, it's actually a surprising thing. My children don't get distinctions in anything else, they just get distinctions in business and accounting, and that's it. So everything else, Zulu, Elo, they don't have distinctions, but in business, you can't be my child and not have a distinction in business. It always turns out, like that. By the way, before I go any further in this presentation, the last time I did a presentation here, I learned something from Pastor. I got to understand that Pastor is a very practical man who wants us to implement, the things that we discuss here. Who here took action on the things that we discussed last time? Just one action that you took. You did something we discussed, I think last time we were talking about savings, and there was a presentation from people from NetBank who did something, just did one thing out of what we discussed. What did you do? You opened a bank account. Wow, let's give a round of applause. At the back, what did you do? There was a hand at the back.
I started an investment account.
You started an investment account. How is it doing?
The profit is still small.
The profit is still small.
Yeah, the interest is
Right. I like people who take action. At the end of my presentation, what I will ask you to do when I get to the slides, it's one of the 4 slides that you have there. I want you to commit to at least 3 actions. Right? There are 3 actions that I have put there. I want you to commit to at least one of them. When I come to that slide, I will talk to you about it. I will give you a few exemptions. I'll give certain people, some exemptions. So if you fall into one of these 3 categories, you don't have to action what I am talking about today. Category number 1 is for people who are like King Hezekiah in the Bible. If Isaiah the prophet has given you a word that put your house in order, tomorrow you will die. You don't have to action what I'm going to talk about, because you're going to die tomorrow, so you're exempt. The second group of people that are exempt from taking action is those people who you heard news in the last week that you got an inheritance of at least 100 million, and so you are sorted. You don't have to execute on what I'm going to talk about, so you are exempt. The third group of people, you are married, or you've got a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you're married in community of property, and you're married to somebody with a wealth of at least 200 million. You don't have to do. So if you don't fall into any of these 3 categories, you better commit to an action, isn't it? All right, so I was just introducing, my family to you. We run a business called Duplex Institute. We do consulting, so I'm a consultant. I spent, how many years did I spend? Even forgotten. Probably spent 14 years working for 2 companies. I worked for KPMG, so I'm a qualified chartered accountant. Worked for AXA, I did some banking, and then went to start a consulting business. So the name of the business is called Duplex Institute. We currently operating in 4 countries. So we've got offices in South Africa, we've got offices in Botswana, we've got offices in Zimbabwe, and in Zambia as well. Right, so we operate, but we deliver our services to 13 countries in Africa. So we've got a portfolio of about 63 banks that we consult for. Last year, we've been able to go to markets such as Ethiopia, and also in the Middle East. The one thing that I want to start saying, in this night, is that don't start a business without a vision. It's always good to write your vision down. I always like people who write visions. Our vision is to be the leading risk strategy and data analytics consulting and training company out of Africa, respected for its innovative solutions and trusted with our clients' most critical business challenges. That's our vision. There. That's the one thing that I want to, focus. Always focus areas. It's always good. We focus on 3 things. We don't do anything else outside of these 3 areas. This slide basically summarizes our journey. Started the business in 2012, and I was presenting this slide to our team in a strategy session that we did. Our journey can be put in 3 phases. So I spoke about, the years of subsistence. Years of subsistence is when we were struggling as a business. One thing that I have learned in starting a business is you will have that phase when you are struggling. During our years of subsistence, I even thought of going back into full-time employment because things were very tough. Things were really, really tough. So we had those years, when I look at these 12 years of subsistence, it was very, very tough. Right. Now we've entered a phase in our business of scaling up. Really scaling up. We're going into territories, we are expanding. So by the end of this year, we would have doubled our business. I spoke to the team, we're actually doubling. I was saying to Pastor, it worries me when I hear other consulting firms scaling back, and we've entered a phase that I call a caterpillar to butterfly transformation, where we are actually transforming our business and we are scaling up, and we've really decided that for the next 5 years we're going to 10x our revenue. So whatever we were making in 1 year, we would want to make 10 times, that in 1 year. Then there is a soaring period that we'll go to. So I've said to the team, I'm leaving the business, in 2030. So I've already, so 2030 dimenge ndisipo, but we're not 2030 dimenge. So I said to my team, 2030 dimenge ndisipo, dimenge ndatoenda. So we'll be handing over the business. I've actually said to my children, there's one of my child who says, when I come back from America, I will run your business. I'm giving them an opportunity to do that. It's always been my vision to start a bank, right? So I said to every time I sit down with my children, I say, they ask me, Daddy, when are you going to start the bank? So I'm saying to them, 2030 and beyond, I will then launch our bank. So just live long enough, beyond 2031, we will start our bank. For now, we are a consulting and training company, but our vision is really to start a bank. And that's been always my vision. So that's a journey. I always say to people, have a vision. Being an entrepreneur and building wealth is a journey. You're not going to become a billionaire in 1 year. It's a journey. And that journey has got its ups and downs. And that's what we need to, understand. I get worried if you're coming out of Zimbabwe. We've got stories there of billionaires who met their money, lots of money in 1 year. Nobody knows when they've met their money. That's not the entrepreneurship that I'm here to talk about. I'm not here to talk about entrepreneurs, people who are 1 year wonders. I'm here to talk about how to build wealth that you can pass on to your children. Right? Doesn't the Bible say a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children? I think there is a verse like that in the Bible. I will leave it to Pastor. Right. The other thing that I will say so much in my business is that I've learned that entrepreneurship sometimes needs to be taught. Right? You need to be taught how to be an entrepreneur. So one of the things that I do is I teach my children and mentor them how to become entrepreneurs and how to build big businesses. It's always good to find a mentor, right, in business. Always good to do that. So that's our journey. That's a little bit of background. Let me now talk about the uncertain times. We're starting our business, but as an entrepreneur, you need to scan the environment and understand the times that we are living in. Right? Very, very important. I just want to take 5 minutes and scan the environment for you. But the essence of what I'm talking about is that don't worry about what people are talking about. Trump this, Trump that, GNU this, GNU that. It's a world of abundance and opportunity that we are living in. But being a world of opportunity and abundance, we need to be able to see what it makes sense of the things that are happening in the world. So that when you set up your business, at least you've got a very good understanding of the times that we are living in. There are 3 themes that I would want to talk about in terms of the world that we are living in. Let me just start here. We are living in a period that I call from certainty to uncertainty. It's a very uncertain world. Things can change very quickly. Very, very quickly. You can start a year and everyone is optimistic about what is happening, and then during the middle of the year, things just go south. Right? As an economist, I can tell you one thing. When we started this year, everyone was saying interest rates will come down. and we are now in a downward interest rate cycle. Then Trump came and was elected. Everyone was saying, we might actually go into a recession in America. They are even talking about a recession in America. And that's how things can change very, very quickly in a year, where people can actually say, things are not very, very well, right? So we are living in a world of high uncertainty. And in this world of high uncertainty, we can have a crisis that can emerge from nowhere, right? Here is my own prediction. It's just a prediction. It's not a prophecy. I'm not a prophet. In the next 5 to 10 years, I think, if not shorter, the world will go into a crisis, right? Nothing to be worried about. The world lives from crisis to crisis. And part of that crisis is mainly, the debt crisis. There will be inflation shocks. You're hearing people talking about, inflation shocks and a lot of volatility. What it means is that you need to be resilient. If there is a skill that you need, I don't care whether you want to be an entrepreneur, you just want to create wealth. If there is something, a skill or a mindset that you must build, it's just a resilience. Because things may not necessarily turn out the way you would want them to turn out. Right? I always say this to young people that are graduating. I think we're going through some graduation season in universities. People are graduating. When I graduated years ago, I had about 5 job offers. Right? In fact, I got my first job offer when I started university, my first year of university. Right? I had a job offer already. And we were doing what is called vacation employment, and you were choosing to go to this company and that company. And you had to turn people down and say, I'm not coming to your company, I'll come to this company. These days, it's a very uncertain one. Have you actually heard that governments are actually retrenching? Just to hear what is happening in America. You can be a government worker and be retrenched. Even here in South Africa, the government is beginning to talk about downscaling. And you're going to see it, happening, there. What it basically means is that whether you would want to be a doctor in the future, you would want to be, I don't care what you would want to be. There are certain money skills that you must learn. You must learn that the world is very uncertain. Very, very, very uncertain. The other trend that we are seeing is we are moving from a unipolar world to a multipolar world. What it basically means is that we are moving from a world that was dominated by America as the superpower. Now America is going down as a superpower. You're going to see superpowers emerging. It's going to be a multipolar world. Right. What does that mean for us? It means that people are going to be fighting. We call it geopolitical risk. Right? Fighting like wars. If you don't believe me, for those of you that follow the news, you might have heard that governments such as the UK government is actually reducing aid to Africa. And they are increasing what they call defense spending. Right? Right? If I were to speak my language. And the reason why people are doing that, even America used to be a superpower. They would even commit to defend Europe. And Trump came and said, no, you have to pay. If you want us to defend you, now you have to pay. And now governments in Europe are thinking about maybe we need to have our own armies and our own technology and defend ourselves. You might even have heard that in America, they are even increasing, Trump is cutting expenditure everywhere. He's retrenching people in government. And all he's doing is he wants to build a super army. He says he will be the best army in the world. That's the reality of the world that we are living in. It means that people will be fighting, quite a lot of fighting. And fighting will cause disruption. What it basically means is that you need to be adaptable. Right? Adaptable. Right? Adaptability. Resilience. Right? These are the skills that we need of entrepreneurs. Gone are the days of business plans. We used to talk to people and say, do a 5-year business plan. Now, I can tell you in 5 years, the world will be a totally different world than it is, now. We don't know what will happen in 5 years. But what we know is that if you are resilient, if you are adaptable, and you do what we call systems thinking, it's also a world where you need to do partnerships. Don't be that kind of entrepreneur who says, I will succeed on my own. In this world that we are living in, you need to partner with people and build alliances, right? Even Africa is beginning to realize that, look, because Africa is the most divided of all the continents, right? What Africa is beginning to realize that Lesotho as a country cannot fight America, right? What can happen is that's why you have seen even in the tariff wars, a country like Lesotho cannot retaliate against America. They just give you a 50% tariff and then you just keep quiet. What a 50% tariff means is that if you're a small business person in Lesotho, it's trouble tight ahead, right? Why am I describing this to you? I'm describing this to you for 2 reasons. Number one, if you listen to the news and you hear people that are saying the rand is going up or it's depreciating, don't worry. It means that there are opportunities that you need to see as an entrepreneur. I'm saying this to you also so that you don't have a false sense of security which says if I complete a degree, I will get a job. You might not get a job. I was doing an interview for one of the positions in our companies. I'm getting people, the most surprising CV that I got for a small job like a marketer. We were looking for a marketing person in our company. I got somebody who had been retrenched as a director from a top company. See, it was called EOH. It's now called Ayoko or something like that. I was here. The person who was a director then, applied in our company to be a simple marketing person to just do marketing of our programs. And then I realized that things are very tough out there, right? I'm also beginning to realize this one thing, right? You've actually met somebody who has been retrenched in their 40s, their 60s, or they are retiring, and then they say, I want to start a business. It's too late for you to start a business. You're going to fail. Probably you would want to start a business now, right? We are also living in a world where globalization, people are talking from globalization to economic nationalization, right? If you look at what Trump is doing, right, Trump is a very strange character, but he's very predictable, right? Because as an entrepreneur, you must be able to see trends and to make sense of what is happening in the world. And based on that, identify opportunities. If you are faced with what is happening in the world, you are not going to create wealth. There is a trend that I did not, put here, but it's true, right? In this room, maybe we are all equal. Maybe not all equal, but the inequality in income is not that much. 10 years down the line, this room will be very highly unequal. Some people will be very, very poor, other people will be very, very rich. And one of the things that we can say in the next 10 years is that inequality will increase, which is why you need to take action. Just take baby steps of what I'm going to discuss to you, talk to you about. I have staged the world for you, right? Wars are going to be fought. Inflation is going up, it's not going down, and probably interest rates are going. Hey, this is not the time to be borrowing money, right? If you are somebody who wants to borrow this from the bank, borrow this from the bank, hey, it's not that time. This time, don't borrow money, right? I'm not talking about borrowing to do projects. I'm talking about borrowing for consumption, right? It's not the time to do that. Yes, you can borrow for a project. You can borrow to finance as long as it's productive. Then you can borrow. But it's not that time to be doing personal loans. Not in this time. Because we may actually see interest rates going up and we may not be able to afford. It's also not the time to be wasting money. This time, where we are going in the next 10 years, don't waste money. Don't waste money. Whatever money you have, save. I think save as part of the huge inequality that we are going to see is that some of the shocks that we are going to see in the world, there are people that will not be positioned for that. Especially if you like borrowing personal loans, you like borrowing, you want be a saver. Even if you don't know what to do in business, you don't understand business, at least save money. Even a rand, be consistent in your saving, because it might actually position you even in the world that we are going on. If you're a small business, what does this globalization to economic nationalization mean? It means that when Trump is putting tariffs in America, it may actually be an opportunity for you to see how to do business in Africa. We are very excited as a consulting company because these Trump tariffs, I think will be well positioned to be doing business even in Africa. We have already put our foot in a number of African countries, and so there will be access even to regional markets. Right. So entrepreneurs, where some people are seeing chaos, sometimes entrepreneurs see opportunities. And we are living in a world of opportunity. Right? We are also living in a world where you need to take action. If you delay taking action in the next 5 years, it's too late. Right? If you don't believe me on that, just wait until it's 5 years. For some of you who want to do business, there is a good book that I have recommended in one of my slides. If you fail to read any of the books that I have recommended, especially if you want to go into business, there is a business which talks about lean principles, how to build a business using lean principles. Use that, right? Because the way you build a business in uncertain times is very different from the way that you build a business in certain times. Because in uncertain times, you must be prepared to pivot. If something doesn't work, don't bang your head against the wall if it's not working. Be prepared to pivot. When you are building a business in uncertain times, it's not the time to increase overheads. Kudara, if people were building business long ago, you would move into an office, you would have staff, you would have all these overheads. If you are building a small business in these times, don't do that kind of thing, because you need to avoid, overheads, and you need to apply lean principles so that you are adaptable and you are resilient. If the world moves in this way, you are prepared to do that. That's how you build a business, right? Don't wait. Some of you maybe you've got product ideas, especially young people. You're thinking of, I need to launch this product into the market. Don't wait for a perfect product. In this book, they talk about what they call a minimum viable product. A minimum viable product is not a perfect product. It's a product that you go to test the market. And then when you test the market, you hear whether there is demand for it, and then you will build a perfect product once you have started to sell. Right? I like what Elder Mavulu was saying around, you don't need resources, you just need to be resourceful. Right? We are seeing businesses that are being built these days with people that do not even have, they haven't even set a factory, but they are beginning to market their product. They are testing the market and seeing if there is a market. If people like the idea, they may actually raise the finance from the people who want, the product to begin with. That's how you build a business in uncertain times in the world that we are living in. So now I've given you the times that we are building a business. Let's go now into the presentation. My presentation is suitable for people that want to go into entrepreneurship. It's also suitable for beginners. Maybe you just want to learn how to manage money. You're a young person, you want to learn how to manage money. Right? Money management principles can be taught. I can teach you how to manage money. Money management principles are universal. Whether you're a Christian, you're not a Christian, there are certain skills that you must have. Elder was telling us that skills are learnable. Right? So what I would want to do in this section, I don't have time, I just want to talk to you about some of the money management skills that you must have. When we teach people on money management skills, we take them through a curriculum that covers 10 areas, right? I don't have time to cover those 10 areas with you, but I'll just highlight the 10 areas for you. These are the 10 areas. You have the slide here, right? So even if you don't get that's the first slide of everything that I'm going to say to you. This is the first slide that you mustn't forget, right? Remember what I said to you. There will be huge inequality in the world. Huge inequalities. You are going to see wealthy people. In the next 10 years, you're going to see the first trillionaire in the world. Like the first trillionaire. You are also going to see young people who are going to become billionaires. Young people. I was reading a report. Does anybody know a person called Mr. Beast? Yes. Who is Mr. Beast? A YouTuber. I never knew, when I went to school, I never knew you could make billions. I think he made 453 million last year. Just by being a YouTuber. Isn't it an interesting world that we are living in? You know, I went to school for so many years and studied so many things, and I'm still studying. But when I see somebody who is just doing YouTubing, I don't know even this YouTubing thing and how you can make 453 million in a year. How old is Mr. Beast? Does anybody know? Yeah? 32 years. Right. I wish I had time I could have told you about young billionaires that we have. Look, it doesn't matter. So one of the things that I'm actually encouraging you, in this world that we are living in, some of the principles that you thought are applicable about making money and being successful are being revised. You are going to see a young person in school that you went to being called a billionaire. And one of the reasons why it happens like that is because they are following certain principles around money. Right? By the way, even if you pray hard, if you don't have certain money principles that I'm talking to you about, I don't think being a prayer warrior will... Have you ever seen poor prayer warriors in your world? When I was growing up, I knew people that you could go to and they would pray for you. But some of them died poor. And it's very, very sad. That's when I realized that sometimes if you don't know certain things and you don't apply certain things, even if you pray very hard, your prayer will not bring money to you in your bank account. Trust me. Yeah. I'm not saying they have not gone to heaven. They will go to heaven, but they will die poor. Some of them died poor. And one of the things that I have seen which was said in my life is to see a prayer warrior who is praying for your success coming to beg money from you. I find that very sad. The reason why I'm saying this is that there are certain money principles. Whether you're a prayer warrior, you are whatever, there are certain money principles and money skills which you must have. I don't have time to go through all of the 10, but I'll just highlight 2 of them. 2 of them. Right, the first one is that you must embed the correct beliefs about money. Right. There are certain people who, when you were growing up, your parents told you money does not grow on trees. How many have ever heard that expression? You think money grows on trees? Maybe that's what your mother was actually. And at the back of your mind, you actually say money does not grow on trees. This thing called money is scarce. So you grew up with a poverty mentality where people were telling you that money is not abundant. I'm here to tell you that money grows on trees. It's abundant. Yeah. So the first thing about managing money is that you must have the correct beliefs about money. If your idea is money does not grow on trees, have you ever heard people saying you need to work hard to make money? And somebody taught you when you were growing up that making money is a result of hard work. And you thought that the harder you work, the more money you're going to make. Hey, in this world that we are living in, you may work very hard and may not make much money. Because those principles and those beliefs that you have learned. So I just want to talk to you about this belief Then I want to talk to you about number 9, just investing the right way. I will not go through the 10 of them because we don't have time. But one of the things that I've learned about money, and I'm teaching you this as young people, right? Mindset matters more than the skills that you have. Yeah. If you have the wrong mindset, in fact, I've actually discovered now that 80% of money creation is about mindset. 20% is mechanics. Even if I give you a good idea about making money, if you've got the wrong mindset, hey, it's not going to work for you. One billionaire years ago was asked the question, since there are so many poor people in this world, why don't we take money from the rich and divide it equally among everyone so that we live, all of us live very well? How many think it's a good idea? Let's redistribute money, take from the rich, and then let's all have the money. One billionaire was asked that question. Do you know what his response was? His response was, it's probably a good idea. But what I can assure you is that within 48 hours, those people who had the money in the beginning will have that money. And those people who didn't have the money will lose the money in 48 hours. And that's very true. The reason why it's true is that managing money is mindset, much more than if you give somebody, even if I give you the whole of the Reserve Bank of South Africa and say it's now your money, if you've got a poverty mentality, you will plunder all that money. And within a year, there is nothing. Because one of the things that we need to start working on is your mindset. What do you believe about money? So 80% of wealth creation is psychology, 20% is mechanics. If you don't believe me, you will grow, one day you will grow to know that this is true. Right? That is why, if you're a young person, even if you don't make a sense this year, at least read books. Read books. At least read books about money. One of the things that I find very useful is that the people that make progress in this world are people who actually read. What reading does in your life is that it helps you to transform your mind. If you've got the wrong ideas about money, you begin to be transformed and be renewed even in your mind. It's the same thing about reading the Bible. Right? Being transformed and being renewed even in your mind. Because you need to renew the mind. So one of the books that I recommend, even if you are starting, there is a book called Think and Grow Rich. I think it should be a foundational resource. It helps you to think about the right things around money. I don't have time to do this, but there are 5 money beliefs which you mustn't have. I can't teach you about entrepreneurship. I can't teach you about managing money if you've got the wrong beliefs about money to begin with. Do you understand? Even if you're a young person, right? Make sure you don't have these beliefs. Number 1, money is evil. Money is not spiritual. I grew up in a church where people, whenever you talk about money, then they will say you're not talking spiritual matters now. To them, spiritual matters was speaking in tongues. Those people did very well. They spoke nice tongues, but their tongues did not bring money. That's the one thing that I actually see. And they lived poor lives, very poor lives, because money is not evil. Me, I love money. If you have to ask me, I love money. I don't know about you. I feel good when I have money. I don't know how it happens, but if I look at my bank account and I've got money, I feel good. I love money. Right? When we were growing up in church, we were told money is evil. Money is good. I'm actually beginning to realize in my life, I don't know if you are realizing it in your own life, I'm actually beginning to realize that I will not be able to fulfill God's purpose in my life when I am poor. I need lots of money. And one of the reasons why I need to be a billionaire in this world is so that I can fund the preaching of the gospel. Right? Do you know how many SMSs I get in my own life? It could be a pastor in a rural area who is trying to preach the gospel, but then they don't have money to send their kids to school. And me and my wife, we have started a foundation to just pay school fees for people. Right? Because it's a huge thing. I now realize that, this money thing is actually a good thing. You can actually do good using money.
That you can actually do good things. You can pay people's school fees. Do you know how good I feel when somebody comes to me and my wife and say, our kids have not gone to school, and then we release a check, then we pay for it. We feel good. Money is good, right? I need to work hard for money. No, money needs to work hard for you, right? You know, if you're, by the way, let me just say something that you mustn't forget. If you're working harder than your money, you will die poor. Your money should work harder than you, right? Because I realized that the people that have got money in this world, their money works hard for them. And if you're working harder than your money, it's a problem. Money cannot buy you happiness. I think I have heard that. Me, I'm happy. When I see my bank account and I've got money, when I'm broke, I'm very unhappy. I don't like to be broke in my life. You know, when we say these things, maybe some of you are spiritual, maybe you think now he's in the flesh. My own belief is that, you know, money helps me to fulfill the purposes of God in my life. I used to give 10% of my budget to God, tithing. Now when I get more money, I'm increasing, I'm now on 20%. You give people money, it makes you happy, right? It makes you happy. That's me, I don't know about you. But the starting point of world creation is the mindset. Money does not grow in trees. Hey, there is so much money out there. You know, think of Elon Musk. In the last week, I think some people were banning his dealership. He's the richest person in the world. He's still the richest person in the world as we speak. That's when I realized that, hey, money grows on trees. Right? There is lots of money in this world. By the way, I used to work for a bank. I saw things there that one day I will talk to you about. There are people, I went to, I will never forget this. I went to lunch with a certain executive at us. I don't drink alcohol. That's how I've been brought up. I don't enjoy alcohol. Will never enjoy alcohol. But somebody bought a bottle of wine for 100,000. I nearly dropped. I nearly fell. You know when you've got a poverty mindset, and this person, from the time they ordered that bottle, I didn't know that a liquid can be that expensive. Have you ever come across a bottle of wine that is 100,000? By the way, one of the things that I would advise you, even if you are poor, at least have one rich friend in your network. Have somebody who's got money. You can't help in your network poor people. My advice to you is that even if you are a poor person and you can't make headway in your life, at least befriend rich people. By the way, we were poor years ago. My wife doesn't like me telling this story. And I said to her, why don't you go and get mentored by my Masiwa? I know, Masiwa is one of the billionaires in Zimbabwe. And there, when I came here, we went to Rema Bible Church. And Strive at that time was going to Rema Bible Church. I sat close to Strive. When Strive was going into church, I would follow Strive. He didn't know me, but I knew Strive Masiwa had lots of money, right? I knew he had lots of money. I knew this. When he sat here, I would go and sit beside him. And when Strive, I followed what he was doing. And what I saw, Strive doesn't know me, even he doesn't know me from above. But I followed him. When he was going to his car, I would walk in his footsteps, just following him. Just to see. Then I said to my wife, go and be mentored by Mrs. Masiwa. So she had mentoring sessions with Mrs. Masiwa and whatever, and benefited from that time. But what I'm saying to you today is that if you've got broke friends, and everyone in your network is broke, and you are the richest person in your network, even if you are a broke person, then you are not going anywhere. At least, just befriend the person. Just befriend. Even if you say to a rich person, I'll come here and pour coffee for you, then you just observe how they are doing certain things. One day you'll be rich. Right. These are the principles that we need to teach people. People with money are greedy, they are evil. I don't have time to explain this. But if you think that people are greedy, Oh, time. Let me skip everything. There are things that I need to get to. There are things that I need to get to. My wife is saying we don't have time. I needed to talk to you about so I've left money beliefs. Did you get my point? Yes. Point number one is we can't teach you about money if you've got the wrong beliefs about money. If you think that people who've got money are greedy and evil, I can't help it. There are people that I know in life who've got money but who are very good people. And they are generous people. And when I become a billionaire myself, I will not own a soccer club. I'll just fund the gospel. And I'll just write checks for the preaching of the gospel. Right? I've resolved to myself, I know I will be a billionaire because, I've lived among billionaires and followed billionaires and watched how they were doing things. When I was close to Strive Masiwa would just get money from his pocket. He would empty his pockets. When we were giving rands in the offering, he was giving US dollars. He would just throw them in. That's when I saw that, rich people are generous. I didn't see it I saw it from Strive. He would empty his pockets and just give US dollars, throw a bunch of US dollars. He said, okay, is that what billionaires do? Okay. Just watch the billionaires, how they do things. Just do that as well. Right, let me move on to this slide. The power of being an investor. We are called to do different things, right? Some of you are called to be pastors, nurses, doctors. We are called marketers, we are called to do things. If there is one thing that you can do me a favor, at least be an investor. Even if you are called to do all of those things. Because investing will help you to make your money work harder for you, right? If you are trading time for money, and you are an employee, because employees trade time for money, it's a very difficult position to be in. You would want to graduate at least being a business owner. You own a business that brings in money. And one of the things that I'm asking you to commit to, at least start a side hustle. I know some of you have got time commitments, you have to feed the family, you've got to do this. But one practical idea is just start a side hustle. Just start a side hustle, right? I will talk to you about how you can do that, right? Because these are practical things. And then ultimately, you need to be an investor, right? When I was following Strive, I didn't meet Strive in South Africa, by the way. Strive is a very interesting company. I met Strive in Zimbabwe. There used to be a fellowship for business people. In Zimbabwe, business people used to have lunch hour prayers. Then I said, if I want to be a billionaire during my lunch hour, where do I go? Go to where the business people gather for prayer, right? Because I told you, you must be in the atmosphere of people that make money. Hear their conversation. One of the things that I learned about rich people is that they don't talk about other people when they meet. They talk about ideas. They talk about, so what is happening in your business? How can we help you? Whereas if you are among friends, all you do is to discuss other people and what's happening in church. You are in the wrong crowd. Trust me. That's how I learned, this thing. I saw Strive moving from an employer to a business owner to an investor. Now he wants to build the first AI factory in Africa. All right? May that be your trajectory as well. Because that's how, you move in life. This will take me an hour to explain. But what I just want to tell you is that there is a difference between saving and investing. Many people confuse the two, right? Saving is not investing, right? Saving is just having money for emergencies. So that if saving is just saving for projects that you want to do. You want to have a wedding, you save for it, right? Investing is where you want your money to work hard than you are working, and you want to beat inflation. There are three enemies that you have in this world. In investing, you've got three enemies, and you must beat those enemies. The first enemy that you have is inflation. Strive is a very wonderful person. Do you know, in this business fellowship that I was going to, we had business people like Nicholas Migran, King, Nigel used to go there. I had mentoring sessions with Nigel Chanakira. For some of you, he used to own banks. One of the things that I saw, that's when I realized that this thing called inflation is a bad thing. Some of those business people are no longer as rich as they were, and it's because of inflation. In investing, you understand that your enemy is inflation, and you always want to beat inflation. Right. Please, I don't have time to teach you a number of things, but inflation is an enemy. And where we are going in 5-10 years' time, inflation is going to shoot up. We come from Zimbabwe, we understand inflation and how inflation can destroy wealth. Right? We understand. Zimbabwe was a hyperinflationary economy. Right? So we understand inflation. Inflation will come even to South Africa. Give it 5-10 years' time. But you need to be well positioned for that. Right? If you go into inflation and you've got debts, that's why you can't be borrowing. Now, you need to be investing, right? So that your investments will actually work for you. Enemy number 2 is taxes. People that have got money want to minimize their tax. I'm not talking about cheating on taxes or whatever. But what I meant in life is that as an employee, there's very little scope for you to reduce your taxes, right? I wish I had time to explain that to you so that you understand that, taxes. Enemy number 3 is costs. Avoid costs. Right? When you build a business, lean businesses. That's why I'm recommending lean principles. But it's about building what we call an asset base, which is a portfolio of investments. I will not talk about my slides, here. But live below your means, guys. Budget. If you are a family, budget your finances. Don't overstretch yourself. These are not the times to live beyond your means. Don't follow what the Johns next door are doing. Don't buy things that you can't afford. Right? This is not the time to do that. The times are very uncertain. The people that will create wealth are savers. They are investors. Those are the people that will create wealth. They are the people with the correct financial habits. Have a unique investment philosophy. But in investing, we don't lose money. If you hear somebody who said, I invested in this, then you didn't know what you were doing. Because rule number 1 of investing is never lose money. Right? That's rule number 1 of investing. I followed 3 billionaires closely in my life. Strive Masiwa is a billionaire that I have followed for so many years. Warren Buffett is a billionaire. I haven't met Warren Buffett, but I read his books. Right? I read his books. I listen to what he says. He is the one who gave us this rule, preservation of capital. Never lose money. Right? And I wish I would explain this for you. But I was just talking about money management principles. The skills that you need. There are 10 skills that you need. So look at my slide there. If you want any explanation on the money management skills, you can drop me an email and say, Chepa, can you give me more information on this? Sometimes, if I have time, I will respond to your email. But there are 10 money skills that you have. And we teach. Even budgeting is a skill that we need. But go and reflect on those skills. Let me move on to my second most important slide. Here. This is a very important slide. We coach entrepreneurs, my wife and I. We used to have a Facebook Live where we would coach. Now I'm very busy, but we're going to commence with that in the second half, where we just coach people. But when we coach entrepreneurs, we've got a framework that we follow. Right? I just want you in the next 5 minutes to follow me as I explain this framework, because it will be helpful for you to understand how money is created and how wealth is created in very uncertain, ways. We've got a coaching framework that I call from white belt to black belt. I came with this idea because years ago, as a young person, I used to be a karateka. Karateka. Right, so don't mess around with me. I don't look like a karateka now, but that's my background. I used to practice Shotokan karate. Right, so I'm a karateka. So that's where I came up with this philosophy of white. So to me, a black belt is an expert. So think of a black belt as an expert in wealth creation, right? So forget about karate. And the idea that I'm trying to explain then is that you need to be, you can also call it from a newbie, from being a newbie. A white belt is a newbie. It's a beginner, right? A black belt is a very competent person. So think of the billionaires like Strive as the black belt in wealth creation, right? Think of the newbie as somebody who hasn't created and built anything. What this coaching framework is saying is that there are 3 things that you need to develop in your money creation, in your wealth creation. You need to develop tangible skills, right? Skills. We heard today that skills are learnable. So there are certain money skills that you need to. Money skills such as budgeting, right? Keeping records. You can't just manage a business and not keep records. Right? Even if you do your side hustle, at least keep records for it. The fact that you are doing a side hustle doesn't mean that you mustn't keep records. Right? Those are money skills that you must have, right? But you also need mindset. We need to work on your mindset. So you need to develop in your mindset. As you are developing in your skills, you are also developing in your mindset. But also number 3, you need to develop in your habits. Habits as well. And one of the things that I saw very well, I've followed billionaires. If you spend time and sit down with me, I will tell you some of the billionaires that I have met in my life, right? And I will tell you about Strive. Stories that he doesn't know, but I know, because I used to audit his business when I was an auditor. And I got to understand some things about how he runs his business, right? So, but what I saw is that these people with money and who create wealth, they have got certain consistent habits, right? So if you want to create wealth, even in uncertain times, develop certain habits. Habit number 1, just waking up early, right? Reading books, listening to motivational, these things, it's a habit that you must have. I've got a habit myself, I finish 1 book every week. It's a habit. You can develop your own habits. Maybe you're a young person, you think, why should I do that? Let's just watch you 10 years down the line. There are certain habits, right, that you must have. Very, very important. Tithing. I don't know in this church whether you emphasize tithing or you don't, but one of the things that I have seen about billionaires is that they are generous. I used to watch these young people. One day when I was an auditor in Zimbabwe, I audited Nigel Chanakira. I prepared a statement of net worth. I was an auditor and did a statement of net worth for him and went to present before him because this statement was needed for a license application that he was doing for a Reserve Bank project in Zimbabwe. And I said, Nigel, this is how rich you are. And these were, billions of dollars in Zimbabwean dollars, in the currency that we had. Then Nigel just looked at me and says, is this how rich? I thought I was richer than this, right? And he began to explain to me some of the habits that he had. So these things, cultivating gratitude. One of the things that I have seen about rich people is that they are not grumpy people. They are grateful people, being thankful. So me, I've developed it as a habit. I don't know about you. Eating healthy. Right, just minding what you eat. It's in our coaching framework, it's a blue belt skill, but I'll tell you about me. When I watch some of these billionaires, I just say to myself, from now on, I'll be a vegetarian. You may eat meat, you enjoy meat, that's for me. You develop certain habits, but that's for me. You've got your own habits, but what I'm just saying here is that one of the things that I have seen is that you need to have certain habits. I'm not saying don't eat meat, that's not my point. I'm just saying that you start with certain habits. Maybe waking up early, maybe reading a book, maybe being mental. Those are certain habits, consistent habits. And then you will develop in your habits, like having a mastermind group. There was a report that I was reading last week, and they were talking about Strive Masiriwa and his network and his mastermind group. And then I realized that, these billionaires have got their own WhatsApp group and they've got their own networks. And you can't just join their networks just like that. I was actually surprised. I'll show you now this report that I was reading. So I've printed this coaching framework for you, right? I don't have time to explain the coaching framework for you, but just make sense of the coaching framework for yourself and say, if I want to move from, for example, a white belt skill, learn how to make money. That's a simple, because I have got a firm belief that as long as you are making an income, you can be financially independent in 5 years. I don't care how much you're making. At least the first skill, basic skill that we need to teach you is how to make money. Right? Whether getting a job, it doesn't matter what you got. Whether you volunteer to do something, just learn how to make money. It's a white belt skill. But this is very important. If you ever come across people who've got a victim mentality, right? They say, me, I'm an unlucky person. If your mentality is about luck and it's about generational cases, maybe in our family we've got generational cases, too many generational cases, and you suffer from victimhood, you're not going to make money. You can take it from me. I have studied billionaires. I understand how this thing works. If you've got a victim mentality, where you are blaming everything, and when we talk to you, you open your briefcase of excuses. And you're saying, I couldn't make money this year because business was tough. If it had not been for that, I couldn't make money because, witchcraft, people, people that, you're talking about witchcraft in your family, you're talking about, you are a victim, it seems you are a victim of, and things are happening to you. We call it a to-me mentality. I'm where I am because I was born poor. Can't you see my family are poor? How do you expect me to be rich? It's like things happen to you. Do you understand what I'm saying? You are poor because you were born in a poor family. You are poor because your parents couldn't afford, and it's your story is about excuses and things happening to you. Hey, you will never get here. Because at some point, you need to have an achiever mentality, where you take responsibility over your life, and you don't blame your parents for the things that are happening to you. The same thing that I have seen in my life is a grown-up person. I will never forget this picture as a young person. I saw a grown-up person crying and saying, my father died, my father died poor. How do you expect me to be rich? If only my father. And I'm looking at this person. You've got a family. And you're actually crying and you're blaming your father at that age. At least at some age, leave your fathers and your mothers alone. At least at some stage, take responsibility over your life. That's all I'm saying. You will never create wealth if all you're saying is generational cases, we need to break this. Yes, I'm not saying generational cases don't exist. Maybe they do. But at some point, you need to understand that there are mechanisms to deal with some of these things. Then, at some point, you need to actually understand that things happen through me. So you've got a to-me mentality. Then you've got a by me. Things happen by me. Right? That's another level. A by me, it's another level. But then you begin to realize that through me, it's when you realize that, look, I'm an instrument of blessing. People are blessed through me. I'm a channel of blessing. I bless people because of my work. Things actually happen through me. Right? You're not a to-me person. You are a through-me person. That's another level. And then there is another level as well. We'll talk about, just try to make sense of this slide. But I'm sure you see the idea behind this slide, isn't it? Right? And you understand. All I'm just trying to say here, you are not going to become an expert in money creation overnight. It's a journey. And in that journey, you're going to learn a number of things. Right? In that journey, you need to be coached by people who have learned. In that journey, it's essentially in three parts. It's skills, it's mindset, it's habits. Right? That's how that journey will be. So that you can live a level of competence. Study any person who has created wealth. They are developed in habits, they are developed in mindset, and they are developed in certain skills. Right? That's why I can't teach certain advanced skills of making money. Because you don't have the mindset and the skills to capitalize on that opportunity. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right, hopefully it makes sense to you. Let me go to my last slide. I'm sure I've gone over time now. Right, I will not spend time on this slide. This is where I need for you to commit. Just commit any one of these three things. Any one of these three things. We call it actioning. Entrepreneurs take action. The difference between somebody who is going to create amazing wealth in the next 10 years and somebody who is going to be poor is the actions that you're going to take. You're going to hear the same words. You're going to have the same preacher preach to you. You're going to read the same books. You're going to have the same teacher. The difference is action. There are some people that are going to take action. The thing about entrepreneur is that you learn as you fail. There is something that we call innovative failure. Oh, by the way, when you get to a certain stage, you begin to realize that failure is not a bad thing. I went to school where failure was a bad thing, and people would fail you. No, when you get to a certain level, you begin to realize that, look, there are certain things that you cannot do until you have failed. We call it innovative failure. Right? One of my mentors, Strive Masiwa, he wanted to launch $1 billion business. I think it was called Questa Media. Ever heard of Questa Media? It was a spectacular failure. Right? But I watched him. I thought he was going to say, I lost money. Because people sued him. I then begin to realize that there is a certain stage where you fail and you don't even blink and you move on to the next project. We call it innovative failure. So, if you have been taught in life that failure is bad, it's not bad. There are things that you're going to fail. In our business, when we're in that period, 12 years of existence, we failed 4 times. Failed as in being chased out of a certain premise by the landlord and said, we don't want to see. We're chased out of a certain building. And we failed. And then we had to start again. You realize that as an entrepreneur, you're not going to cry when things don't work out. It's not the end of the world if the project that you wanted to do does not work out. That's why you need resilience. And one of the things that I can almost assure you, given the uncertainty, you're going to read a certain opportunity wrong and you will fail. Just move on. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. And that's what you need to understand about creating wealth. It's not going to be a straight, upward sloping line. You're going to fail. But when you fail, learn, from it. But the most important thing is to take action. I need people that take action. What am I going to do tomorrow? Right? Don't just have this person who says, I've got a dream, but you don't put actionable steps to your dream. So there are 3 things that I would want you to commit to. Number 1, build an investment portfolio. At least build an investment portfolio. Even if you don't understand, I'm telling you, build an investment portfolio. And it's very simple. If you are earning an income, right? One of the things that I have said to my children, right? I'm not that parent who believes that children should fend for themselves. I say to my children, I will pay for you. You're not going to go to university with loans. Even if you're going to America, I will pay for you until you finish your studies. Right? Don't worry about fees. Daddy will pay for the fees wherever you study. It's my problem. But during that time, build an investment portfolio because I'm going to leave you at some time. Then you take care of yourself. You need to start building an investment portfolio. The earlier you start, the better. And this is how you build an investment portfolio. Save 10% of your income. Right? I used to tell my children, if you get 100 rands, 10% is a tithe, 10% is for savings, you can only use 80%. That's how simple it is. And even when you're working, some of you are going to be working. When you're working, when you get a salary, 10% tithe, 10% saving. So you already learn. Even if I give my children pocket money today, they know if you give them 10 rands pocket money, 1 rand is for the church, 1 rand is for savings. Right? Whether you start with the savings jar in the house, it doesn't matter. Right? Small steps. You start to save. When you begin to save, start by building a buffer first. Buffer. Emergency funds. Just money we are going into a world of shocks. There will be shocks. If you go into a shock when you don't have a reserve, what if you lose your job today? Do you have an income to live for the next 3 months? Because anybody can lose their job if you're working. I have seen people being retrenched and you'll be told, oh, business is tough. So you need to have reserves, right? 7 years of plenty, 7 years of drought. We learned that in Genesis. When there is 7 years of plenty, you build reserves because there is a time that is coming, right? Have you actually seen, did you actually see in the book of Genesis, during the later years of the 7 years of drought, some people sold their land, right, to Joseph, so that they could just buy food, because you need to live. And if you don't have reserves, so before you even start investing, you have an emergency fund. Then if you build that emergency fund, you start investing. Start on the stock market. Start small, right, on the stock market. There is a difference between saving and investing. So you begin to build a portfolio. Then you can even open a trading account where you start trading. Right? That's a skill that we can teach you later on. You start trading. You're going to make losses here and there, but you're going to learn how this thing works and how the world of finance works. Anybody in this room can do this. Right? If you're getting a pocket money from a fellow, say, Daddy, can you open an account for me? I want to start buying shares. At some point I took my children to the stock market. When I went to America last year, I said to my son, let's go to the New York Stock Exchange. We didn't enter inside, but we moved around the premises. What can you see? These are the people with money. Trying to introduce him to the people with money. Right? Sooner or later he's going to make contacts with some of them. You can't have poor friends around. At least have people that have got money. Right? Hope you're not offended by that. Second thing that you can commit to is start a side hustle. Right? Side hustle. We all have got spare time. A side hustle in my world, don't get offended when I say this. Somebody will say, I've got a side hustle, I like baking cakes. Good for you, you like baking cakes. What I have in mind here is something more than baking cakes. It's about solving a real problem. See the problems in your community. Sometimes I meet people who say, I'm passionate. I don't care about your passion. What is the problem that you have? Put your passions aside. Passions are for people with money. If you don't have money, you solve problems. There is always somebody who is saying, I'm passionate about doing this. I want to sing, maybe forget about your passion. Focus on the problems that the community has. Try to solve those problems. Then when you have made money from solving those problems, then you can worry about your passion. I learned this when I was looking for I talked too much. I promise I'll be closing in the next 2 minutes. I learned this when I started working for ABSA. I said the passions are for people with what? Money. When I started working for ABSA, there was a guy who was the CEO of ABSA. His name was Steve Van Coller. A young man. He was about 45 years. And then he was fired, right? Because they wanted Maria Ramos to be the CEO, the group CEO of ABSA. And then this was a clever man. He says, if you want me out of this place, pay me. He had 2 years of his contract. And they paid him 100 million. I never knew that somebody could be paid that amount of money for just leaving their job. Then Steve Van Coller said this. Somebody asked him, so what are you going to do with your 100 million? He said, I've always wanted to start a boy band and sing. Boy band. Now with 100 million you can sing, because that's your passion. You've made money. He went and started his boy band. We don't know what Steve Van Coller sings. I've never met his music, but even if people don't buy, it's your passion. You don't have to, you're fulfilling your passion. Passions are for people that have made money. If you haven't made money, solve a problem. Trust me. So don't say, I've always wanted to sing. Maybe if you'll allow me, I want to be a... No. There are times when you pursue your passion. For now, solve the problem. So even if you start doing your side hustle, solve the real problem in the community. If the problem is cakes, right? Then that's a huge problem. Then solve that problem. Then when you're solving that problem, you want to start with your skills, but I would want you to be disciplined in your habits. Because the people that do these side hustles very well, these are the people that say, every Saturday between 9 and 12, I do my side hustle. You're consistent. You're building your business. There's a discipline that you have around that. Then start lean. Build an MVP. An MVP is a minimum viable product. If you read one of the books that I will recommend to you, you will learn what an MVP is. Build an MVP. Don't wait to be perfect. Go out there, start advertising on WhatsApp and say, I bake cakes. And these are the cakes that I bake. And then see if there is a demand for it. Don't say, I'm passionate about baking cakes and this is the cake that I... What if people don't need that cake? Right? Because in this uncertain world that we are living in, it's about the customer and what they want. It's about the problems that need to be solved. It's not about what you feel should happen. Hopefully you get that. But your side hustle, treat it like a business. Let me define to you what a business is. A business is not registering a company. There are people who thought that I've registered a company with the CIPC, I now have a business. No, you don't have a business. You just have a company registration certificate. A business is systems. Don't forget that. These are systems that produce money. That's a business. If you thought that a business is a CIPC certificate, you are mistaken. A business is a system. The people that build businesses are actually building systems. Even if you've got a company that's generating money, if you don't have systems in place, you don't have a business. Even if you are getting money, because businesses are systems. One day you will know that what I'm talking about is correct. Then, if you want to build a small to medium business, make sure it's scalable, right? But I need to teach you how to manage cash. If there is a skill that you must learn in business more than anything else, and you start learning this skill as a young person, how do you manage cash? How do you manage cash? Because most of the businesses fail because they can't manage cash. One day I'll explain it to you and you'll see that it's making sense. Go digital early. If you don't have digital visibility, you don't have a business. Right. Let me stop there. I think I have exceeded my time. Thank you so much, Elder. Thank you so much.